You need me to wake you up before you go? I could see you a total like 80s, early 90s music lover.
One of my favorite genres that most people never expect from me is late 80s and 90s hip hop and gangster rap.
Okay. Yep, that's unexpected.
It's very unexpected, but like that's like a very favorite genre of mine.
Cool.
And now you know.
I feel so empowered.
I actually boiled my water before we got started tonight.
I did as well, but I'm just giving a little fresh boil. You know, I like having, especially with teas like this, I like having like really hot water.
Sometimes I'll like start like a younger sheng at like maybe like 95 and like work it up to 100, but like that's only on like Mao and
Mm-hmm.
very rarely on that. But all right, I am completely set. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, we're live. We're
Cool.
on Reddit. We got some folks here waiting for some
Hell yeah.
action.
Well, welcome to another episode of The First Steep. As always, my name's Colin. That's all I have to say about myself.
My name is Elise. Welcome in, y'all. I am the CEO and founder of Tealet, a B2B marketplace for small scale independent tea growers. That's it. Let's do it. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is a great podcast. We usually taste, or we always taste, two different teas in parallel. And the purpose of this live podcast, which is now officially a real podcast, right?
There are episodes, and I didn't even set up the command I meant to set up in my chat. Whoops.
It's okay. You can set that up now if you want. So yeah, the
I'll
purpose
just,
of
do it
this
manually.
cool. Yeah, the purpose of this podcast is to not only talk about tea and introduce tea and the tea lifestyle to you all, but is to make it a interactive educational experience to understand tea based more from the perspective of terroir or uh, the uh, the environment and the conditions of how the tea is grown and processed. So we typically like to select two different teas that are going to teach us something either in parallel or in contrast or in complementary. And so today, I guess it's a little bit of a contrast or also a little bit of a parallel, and we're having two different Sheng teas, or two different puer teas, I'm sorry, one Sheng and
Yeah.
one Shou, which is the main difference being one is will eventually age and turn that dark color that you think about with puer tea, but that age is done slowly. And the other one, that aging is done in an accelerated process, similar to how composting, not exactly how composting happens, but the similar, dynamics to how compost is kind of fermented and processed quicker.
I served show puer to somebody for the first time recently, and they literally asked me, "Are you serving me compost?" I was like, "Yes, I am."
Hey, that's perceptive.
Yes. But yeah, so we've got two teas that are extremely similar but extremely different. One of them being a very young sheng, as it were, being the style that Elise here is saying that is gonna age slowly. This is from 2020. So Wong Peon, we can talk more about what that means later. And then we've also got this Shou puer from 2010. The Shou puer being the kind of the cooked style, the more rapid aging style, obviously. I am, of course, muted as always somehow. God damn it. Were you recording there?
I was actually. Well,
uh,
no, I wasn't. But you can pull it from YouTube.
okay.
Sorry.
We'll
Yeah.
do that. My bad. I am recording now. Damn it. Okay, so like I was saying, I'm gonna back up a little bit. we've got two teas, like Elisa's saying. We've got a Sheng puer, we've got a Shou puer. The Sheng is a 2020 young Sheng from that is it's considered a Wong Peon. We can discuss what that means later. This is the style that Elise has said it will, age slowly. We've also got a Shou puer, so it accelerated style cooked puer, as some people say is 2020 or from 2010. It's from Shan actually. So we've got an actual mountain for that
Nice.
one, and I'm not super familiar with Bulong, but at least I think you mentioned you've been to several of the mountains.
And that's one of them I haven't been to.
Of course it is. God damn it, podcast over.
Yeah, but I do have experience with tasting. I mean, just among my peers of the industry, other tea importers that deal more extensively in puer. I don't deal extensively in puer. Just because the market demand for these types of tea is relatively limited, and that's just because a lot of people haven't been introduced to them. They don't know much about them, but I do know.
So you're specifically selling to the hobby market at that point, if
Yeah.
you're facing the Western market, usually.
Yes, I am elevating the Western market, but yes, I am definitely, more fixated and focused on trying to create market opportunity for small family farms in the international market, like larger scale than just,
Right.
like, oh, I can only take, 1 kilo a year, which, really is unfortunately for like hobbyist vendors kind of the quantities that they're importing on, which does give them a lot of opportunity to source a variety of teas, and so when it comes to puer, we've developed a few very strong relationships with small family farms, and unfortunately I haven't had the chance to explore much of Boulogne, but I have a lot of friends and peers that do work, and I've gotten to taste their teas and have found that the general kind of terroir characteristic of that mountain is a lot more gentle and sweet than other mountains. Yeah, that's been my experience with it, and I look forward to tasting this and seeing, what comes here.
The only reason I act shocked is not because I have any opinion that is of the opposite. More just that for some reason I feel like most commonly I've heard that a lot of folks find Boulogne to be a very bitter, produce very bitter teas. But that's one of those things that I wonder, is that that's probably just a perception thing. Who the hell knows?
Yeah, it could be a perception thing. And what I'm talking about is not necessarily bitter or astringency. It's more on the energetics. Yeah.
Sure.
So, yeah, maybe using the word sweet was misleading, but yeah, just
I
like
will
gentle.
I will say I felt misled.
Okay. Sorry. Fake news. Sorry. I will do better. Please don't deplatform me. Please don't deplatform me. I'll do better.
So what do you want to start with? I'll let you pick what you want to start with. Whether you want to start with the more vibrant and kind of in your face young Sheng, or the little more gentle Shou.
Yeah, let's start with the gentle tea first, just so we don't whack off any. What a terrible use of words there. So we don't throw off any energies or sensations that we have going on, because it's true. Yeah, especially if we don't know the origin of the tea. We don't know, like the quality of the leaf source. So I'm a little intimidated by this Sheng tea. I will drink it with you, but I think let's start with this Boulogne first, and then we can move with the Sheng. I think, like, educational wise, it's better to start with Sheng, but I just want to make sure that we're good to our.
I'm all for starting with Shou on this one. Just
Okay.
I am very familiar with these two teas, and I was hoping you would say Shou, but I wanted to leave it up to you, just because I think that this will be the smart choice.
Okay. Good.
So I don't have a lot of information about the origins of this tea. I won this tea in a raffle, of all things.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah. The listing says the Cha Yifeng Company. I don't know what that is or anything. But it is a very densely packed cake, and I do have the cake with the wrapper out of the Pomodoro, so I can show that if necessary. but it was stored in Kunming as well. And so Elise and I are talking a little bit about um, the tea before we started, and kind of about how storage is real important and stuff. And I'm not super like well versed on storage. At least I don't really care that much. I just like drinking tea. But I will say that this, compared to obviously something that I've had stored in Hong Kong, is like night and day,
Mm-hmm.
right? Kunming being extremely dry compared to a place like Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it doesn't have any of that wet basement kind of fishy show smell, but it's definitely got that thick kind of almost chocolatey kind of flavor to it.
That's
Now,
great.
I do have a question from my chat here that I think is actually a really good question to kind of start our conversation about puer
Mm-hmm.
here.
Uh-huh.
If it's okay, if you don't mind me bringing
Yeah,
that one
please.
up. So this question is from Mizzou Murphy here. He's a good friend of mine. We were actually roommates in college.
Cool.
So he's curious about energetics and what that means. And I think that puer is a great opportunity to kind of talk about that, considering that this is definitely, especially Sheng is a very energetic style of tea. But and I'll let you kind of start on that, because I don't know if I have necessarily the words to really express exactly what I'm thinking with that one. So
So yeah, energetics is it's like the feeling that your body's biochemistry experiences after a tea. And it's not just like immediately after a tea, it could be hours after, it could be minutes, hours. And so it's like when you're a tea buyer or you're assessing the quality, especially of like higher valued teas, you're potentially going to be spending a great amount of money on a tea. The energetics is in China the most important thing to look at. More important than aroma, more important than texture, more important than, the flavor notes. And here, like in the wine world, flavor notes have become such a popular thing to attach ourselves to. But energetics is something that you could bring even to wine tasting and to spirits tasting. And I think that's actually a great favor and service that tea connoisseurship is bringing to the connoisseurship of other products. But it's something nuanced, and like among American connoisseurs is a very new concept. And so you'll meet like a tea lover that's been buying and collecting teas for years that may not already be talking about energetics, but in China it's a very important thing to look at, and especially with puer teas, especially with Sheng puer, like you mentioned, because it's young and the energies can be extremely erratic, extremely high, extremely erratic, and that's
vibrant,
vibrant.
exciting.
Yeah, chaotic. Like I call when a tea is bad, I call it wonky. Wonky energy
Hmm.
is kind of the description word that I like to use. And it'll make you feel uncomfortable, right? Like tea, and in traditional Chinese medicine, tea plays a role to not as a medicine, not as a reactive medicine about how we think about medicine. It's like you get sick and drink some tea. Actually, in traditional Chinese medicine, they wouldn't prescribe you tea once you're sick. The tea is a part of your daily lifestyle as a proactive measure to balance your energies. So there's a interesting like history in kind of the medical field of Chinese tea, and with puer teas, and we've talked about this on other podcast episodes, is what makes puer unique to other teas. Although all teas have energies and have higher rates of energy, and our perception of them can be really high, but with puer tea, the leaf material that's used to process the tea is almost exclusively coming from trees grown from seed. And that's
Hmm.
really important because when you germinate a seed, it generates a very strong taproot. And that taproot will go just as deep into the earth as the tree is tall. So if it's a young tree, so we don't know the leaf material of this, so it's kind of difficult for us. But more than likely with both of these teas, it's probably young trees. It's probably not very, very old trees. And so that can play a part in kind of the erratic nature, the erratic kind of like wisdom of the energetics of the tea. Because when the roots go deep, there's history, there's knowledge, there's all the fungal networks, the myopic networks of all of the bacterium that's connecting the whole forest together, and then also the minerality, and that also plays a part into like the tasting sensation of these types of teas, which do tend to be quite earthy. That's a word that people, they'll say, like fishy or earthy or musky. And I think that has a great deal to do with the higher concentration of the minerals deeper in the earth where these root systems will reach. Yeah, so I hope that answers the question. I mean, there's so much more to talk on it, and unfortunately, there's not a great deal of science to talk on around it. It's a very kind of spiritual kind of explanation and intuition.
You kind of have to experience it a few times in multiple facets to kind of fully understand it. And a lot of times, so if you've watched, these podcast episodes before, or if you've watched my stream in the past where I drank tea on stream, I'll often revert to starting to talk about images that I'm seeing, right? Like things that are kind of conjuring up in my head. And that for me is very representative of this energy that we're talking about. Kind of what those images are, or like generally like how it makes me feel, right? If I say I'm feeling like stoned or something, like that is very much like an effective, like a tea energy, because caffeine should not make me feel, mellow and chilled out. But like, we talk, there's all this other chemistry in tea. But honestly, I think that's why the experience, especially with puer, is so enjoyable, is just because like it's so much more than just drinking and enjoying. And I've tried to actually use these feelings of energies, right, when I've been tasting wine and whiskeys and beers lately. I've been making a concerted effort to try and use the same vocabulary and kind of thought process for the two, and it's been very rewarding as such, and very confusing for a lot of people. What do you mean this one makes you feel relaxed? It's beer, of course it does. Yeah, no. But hang on. Energy.
I think it's empowering, actually, when you do that, because when you're working with these flavor wheels or these tasting notes, and like you're working with a sommelier and he's like explaining, or he or she, sorry, is explaining this to you, then it can be intimidating. Versus when we're talking about our feelings. Feelings are something that like you can't tell someone, oh, you're feeling the wrong feelings. You can't tell someone that, you can tell
because
someone,
that's so personal.
You're not sensing the right flavor note. Like you can tell someone that, and you can give someone an insecurity or a complex that they're not doing it right, or they're not educated enough.
I still think that you can't tell somebody that they've got a wrong tasting note, because I also think that's very subjective. But it's an easy thing to get with people, right? Yeah,
it happens, and it does intimidate people from exploring the connoisseurship of products like wine, because they could even watch it in a movie. It doesn't even have to happen to them in real life. They could watch it in a movie and watch a sommelier talk about their wine, and then be like, "Yep, that's not for me. I don't even know half the words that guy just said." But if you're just like sitting around a table and talking about your feelings, like that's very approachable, and it's very empowering. To realize, oh, hey, I don't have experience, but like I know what my feelings are. Like I can talk about that. I can talk about my memories and my thoughts and ideas that come through when I taste this thing.
I love that we brought this up here, because this is honestly my biggest gripe when it comes to our these hobbies that we're talking about. Oh yeah, like I've got a much darker color than you do.
I brewed it light. I like to.
I rinsed twice, actually.
You rinsed twice?
Yeah, it's so densely compact, and
I see.
The leaf makes me a little nervous, I won't lie, but
I rinsed it once, twice. And that's a lot for me, because I don't usually rinse my tea, but whenever it's a mystery tea like this, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna rinse this one.
But no, I love that we're talking, bring this up because this is my biggest gripe with these tasting hobbies, and when it comes to tea, specifically puer, is that there's this like level of gatekeeping that is super kind of under the radar a little bit. And when we get to, wine, it's the price tag, right? It's the price tag coupled with the flavors that nobody can identify. When we get to tea, it's like the just the vast amount of knowledge that is this level of gatekeeping to people that they struggle with because people don't want to help them into that vast level of knowledge. Plus the tasting notes, and then they discover puer, and then we start throwing in all these recipe numbers, 7582 and 8582 and 7437 I don't give a shit, but like you get all of these fucking numbers and all of these factories, and like it kind of creates this level of like deer in the headlights kind of experience where it's so much and it's so hard to experience, and nobody really likes to help you. They just like to keep throwing the numbers at you. And I think, and my biggest soapbox lately has always been, just drink the tea.
Mm-hmm.
Just drink the damn tea and then tell me what the words that come to your mind are.
Mm-hmm.
Did you like that? Good.
Mm-hmm.
Drink more of it. Did you not? It doesn't matter. And so it's just, it's such a, it's very relevant, I think, with puer specifically.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so my initial thoughts on this tea.
Yes.
Yes, not fishy. That's a good sign. When it comes to Shou puer, it is very, very common for people, especially if it's your first time to have it, to like immediately just be like, oh, this is like fish. It smells like fish. It feels like fish. It tastes like fish. And
somebody said Chinese restaurant to me one time. I went, okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I guess kind of the spices and the warmth and a lot of Chinese restaurants do serve really poor quality Shou puer. So like that makes sense.
It was a weird comparison, but
I mean, for some people, and that's okay. You have to validate people's experiences and their perspectives, because for some folks, like, that is their experience. Maybe that's what they've been limited to with these types of flavors and aromas,
Sure.
and energetics. But I'm not getting that with this tea, so that's a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good sign. I am, like, even now initially, like, I am getting the warmth throughout my body, which is also a good sign. But I am getting a little bit of that wonkiness behind my eyeball. But that's to be expected.
Mm-hmm.
It's light. What will be more important to compare is when we move to the next tea and see if the intensity of that feeling increases, because that would, be something to identify there. But on the fishy smell, I wanted to talk a little bit on that and like where that comes from. I'm not too sure. I mean, it probably does come a little bit from storage, like if it's too dry or too wet and too warm. And then whatever else, who knows what is inoculating the tea, because when these teas get stored and when they're processed as well, but even when they're stored, when they're dried and stored, they are not in these like vacuum packed sterile environments. You don't want them in
they're like
sterile environments.
They're in a basement.
Yeah, you want them to be exposed to the natural flora in the air, which is like bacteria and yeast. You want those things to inoculate the tea, and this is the dry tea leaf. And those are the things that are actually going to process the tea and help it
Ferment.
evolve and age and ferment. And it's a biological process, very similar to fermentation that we know in kimchi, the kimchi that you've come to love so much, Colin.
It took me 2 weeks to get through that jar.
And so like that fermentation changed the kimchi from whenever you first cut it. Like, had you eaten it then, the chemical composition and the effect, the physiological effect that it has on you was very different from whenever you were first making it to when you consumed it, and that's because of that fermentation. And so
same thing is happening in this cup of tea.
It is possible if you are fermenting that tea in a very like poor environment that's too warm, too wet. It's like
It'll
instigating
just
too
mold.
much growth, and then also inoculating it with the bad cooties that you don't want there. They can make those off aromas, but more than likely, those fishy things are coming from what's being fermented in the that compost, because in that compost, like, it is definitely wet and it is definitely hot, and if you don't have a clean environment, I mean, I'm pretty sure that you didn't like just take your kimchi jar dirty and just put the kimchi in, right? You cleaned it, you sterilized everything, right?
Wait, I wasn't supposed
Yeah, you're supposed to, right? Because, like, I mean, anybody who's ever tried to make yogurt or tried to make beer or wines, if you do not sterilize everything, even one little microorganism of the wrong species that's in that environment can fuck up the entire batch, and completely affect, the alcohol content or the sugar consumption, or in most cases, give it a funky smell, like the funky
It's
smell of our
alive.
yeah, the funky smell of our trash, or the funky
Mm-hmm.
smell of your garbage, whatever they call that, the in
The
your
garbage
sink,
disposal.
and the garbage disposal in the sink. If you don't keep that thing clean and you got stuff in there, you start to smell this smell, and that's the
Mhm.
fermentation that's happening. So, um, with the show processing, it's done in very large batches. So then there's a question of the leaf quality, the leaf material that's going into the processing, because I think they need something like 3 tons of leaf to process one batch, which is quite a bit of leaf. You can't get that from one single farm that the
Well,
quality.
that's
Yep.
where that whole factory
Yes.
tea phenomenon came from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. A very interesting dynamic of like China's history, after the Cultural Revolution and kind of the centralization of business and processing and globalization. Yeah, it's just like quantity, quantity, scale, scale. And some factories are great. They do follow HACCP and they do follow ISO standards of sanitation, and they can make clean tea. So I'm assuming that this tea was processed in a sterile environment, because you're not getting that
Yes.
fishy. But it is very common, especially if you go to a little Chinese store and they're selling, Shou puer for super super cheap. And you take it home and you try to drink it, and it smells like fish. It smells like, you know, usually an insulting type of smell, not pleasant. And don't drink it. Like, don't think, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like. No, there's better.
That being said, though, what I found is that there's a very, 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 very fine line between that fishy smell and wet basement smell.
Mm-hmm.
Weirdly enough, that line is super, super easy to just accidentally cross over.
Mm-hmm.
And and I say this because I thought for a long time, oh, I don't like Chopware, until I realized that, oh, I just been having a lot of really I've been drinking mostly traditionally stored Chopware, things that were stored in like Hong Kong, where like that wet basement, like grandma's moldy, musty, the sump pump broke kind of smell, and some people just eat that shit up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't get that. But I feel like and the reason why I bring that up is just because that to me is just as offensive as that fishy smell. But I feel like that storage and that kind of wet pile smell just kind of go hand in hand weirdly, and like they can kind of work one into the other, and it's just such a strange issue that I
Mm-hmm.
find with show and
Mm-hmm.
other hate shop. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that has a lot more to do with kind of the acquired taste
mm,
around puer tea, which outside of the fishy smell, which that's just obvious. It's like, oh yeah,
yeah,
that smells
that's not
fish. No,
good.
I don't want that. But like that wet basement aroma that you're talking about, it could turn people off. I've seen it. I know it does. But it's
Turns me off.
it is an acquired appreciation that I've noticed. Okay, so it's been some minutes now, so I think it's good to talk about energetics. My body is still feeling like from the core, which when it comes to like these darker fermented teas, a lot of times people do just focus on the energetics of their core, like they're drinking it for that. They're drinking it as a medicine to like balance the energies of the core of their body, and I'm feeling that. I'm feeling warmth. It's not tingling and evenly distributing through all of my body, as far as like my limbs, but it's kind of concentrated in my belly, which is not bad, not bad. But I am getting just still feeling, and it hasn't gone away, is just like ever so slight discomfort in my head, which for me is not something I usually like. But it could be worse. It definitely could be worse. And so, yeah, again, when we move on to this next tea, this Sheng tea, I'm sure we'll get to feel that on a much more extreme case. How are you feeling?
So this is one of those teas that just honestly makes me stoned. So the flavor, the texture is very reminiscent of cookie dough to me. It's got that kind of almost like sticky kind of feeling to my teeth, and it introduces that kind of bready, chocolatey note. But honestly, like there's just like this warmth, like you say, it's like fire in my belly, kind of warmth down my back. And this has been a nice tea for me, at least in the evening. Just kind of something to kind of ease me out. I don't necessarily get that kind of wonky feeling behind my eye, but that might be a personal thing. I have no idea.
It is personal. It really is, because I've noticed that oftentimes I'm the only one that is perceptive to that. And I think that just has to deal with like the nature of my tea experience.
Sure.
The teas that I've been exposed to, like at my tea journey has from day one, which wasn't that long ago. I haven't been a tea connoisseur since I was a kid. I got into it in adulthood, but it has been time. It's been over a decade, so I've been deep into it, drinking thousands of teas at this point. But majority of those teas have been extremely clean tea. And clean and organic, and no use of chemicals, but also clean in like the purity of the people and the environment and the community where these teas come from. And I think that plays a very big part in the energetics of tea, as does the soil of the roots. And that I think that's why puer tea, which is coming from trees grown from seeds with those deep tap roots, does make those energetics more pronounced and imperceptive.
I'm gonna start warming teaware for Sheng as well.
Yeah. Let's move on to the other tea. I like this tea. It's not bad.
No, I definitely enjoyed this tea initially more than I ever expected to.
Yeah, not having the fishy, like that's just a huge turn on.
Huge, right?
For Shou because so many of them are just so bad. Speaking on Boolong, and the thing that I had mentioned earlier about the softness and the gentleness, I'm feeling that with this tea. The energetics might be a little off for me in particular, that, and I can't explain. I mean, I don't know where the leaf come from, so I can't even say why I'm getting that wonkiness from it. And it's ever so subtle, and it's like I've had it where I feel like my head is about to like expand and blow up and explode. It's been that crazy. Like this is just ever so subtle, and it's just persistently back there. But the calmness and the gentleness that I'm feeling, that warmth I'm feeling in my belly is much more pronounced, and is making it much more bearable to, get my mind off of that. I'm just being super perceptive because we're recording a podcast right now, and I want
Yeah. No, it's great.
to.
So I am serious when I say I am just like,
Yeah, you look it.
it's kind of, I'm just, and I don't know, ever since I got this tea, it's been that way. I let it sit in my humidor, let my humidity stabilize and all that stuff. And also my tea storage, my puer storage has been wonky lately, which sucks. But ever since then, it's just a trip. But anyway, we're gonna probably bounce up again. So we've got Sheng now. This is from 2020. This is a Wong Peon blend. As I understand it, Wong Peon refers to fully mature leaves. I'm not super familiar with the term or the concept myself because I'm not big into puer. But yeah, very young, just big flat leaves, a lot of energy, pretty green. And yeah, I like have to brew this one in clay, otherwise like it just murders me.
Oh, it's so strong, so intense
it,
with its astringency and power.
It's a little astringent, yeah.
It's power.
Power. Oh, unadulterated power. Something stupid.
So yeah, this cake is pretty dense as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling this is the piece of tea I'm working with here.
Yeah.
Pretty dense. Which is actually not typical. Usually with high quality Sheng teas, they're using the more traditional method of compressing the cakes, which don't make them as compressed. They have to use very strong hydraulics to create that compression, which you usually only do in very large scale processing.
Well, I'm not going to pretend like this is like the most expensive Sheng by any means, so. So, and I don't know about you, but
off in the aroma.
I tend to give this one a pretty long rinse as well because of that tight compression, though. Mm-hmm. I honestly like that first steep of this just never really feels like it's super worth it. All right. What kind of things are you smelling there? I'm very curious. I'm really curious about your opinion of this because you seem very intimidated by it.
Oh, so that was just a dry leaf I was smelling, and I just had noted that there's nothing pronounced and, out of place.
Sure.
Yeah. Which is a good thing. SKS, tonight we are doing a comparative tasting of a Sheng and a Shou puer, both from Yunnan, China, from different mountains, of course, different producers. We unfortunately don't have a whole lot of information on the mountains or producers, but just talking in general about those two categories of puer tea. Currently, we've just finished drinking a Shou puer from Long
2010.
Now we are playing with a Sheng, completely mystery tea.
Got a pretty good orangey color on it, though.
So yeah, this is just my rinse, but you can tell the difference in color. Yeah, the last one was much darker. This is much lighter, and that's just really the main difference on that is the amount of post fermentation that's happened to the processed leaf.
Seeing as the Sheng is a 2020 pressing, I highly doubt there's a lot of
aging.
microbial action happening quite yet.
Yeah, I've got, I started this business in 2012, and I started working with Sheng in 2014.
Mhm.
So, oh no, I take that back. I started working in 2030, or 2013.
Yeah, I was like,
And
ma'am, where's your time machine and may I ride it, please?
um, I'm just going to dump this rinse out. I'm not going to touch that one. But I have some like really nice Sheng tea from those times, and every time I pull them out and try to do a comparative tasting, I still really even haven't found a major difference in the
Well, so
the
this might
aging,
be the
and
this
it
might
could
be
be
the
more.
opportunity to. Sorry, what?
You're too stoned over there. You're too tea stoned over there.
Not.
um, It could be a factor of that most of that time that tea has been sitting in extremely dry storage here in Las Vegas. Not warm storage. I know Vegas is a hot place, but I've always taken very good care of temperature control on the tea because I found that and have learned that when it comes to storing teas, that consistency and temperature is the most important. If you want to start really playing around with the aging and if I wanted to create like a better environment for aging here, I would, humidify the air a bit more to kind of add to that wetness. But um, I'm not in the business of aging puer teas. I'm in the business
Sure.
of trying to move tea on the behalf of farmers. So, um, and farmers aren't in the business of aging teas either. Like you'll never go to a puer farm and find a great vault full of all their aged teas. They may have some stuff personally that they've just kind of kept that they're just aging there, but like that's a whole different industry, a whole different business of aging.
See,
Um,
and I did want to talk about this a little bit
yep.
because like I feel like that's such a major portion of the puer conversation is the aging and storage industry and situation. And I did want to ask how you store yours because I have two like just kind of plastic boxes basically with bovedas and little, these things. I can never pronounce the name of them in there, to tell me what the temp and the humidity is. But like it's so complex and the the all the different like controls that you have to maintain are really intense. So I don't know. What kind of storage setup do you run actually?
Everything is in zip tight bags. I don't have anything in like a vacuum. So, there still
Right.
is the existence of some oxygen, but not like, oh, one little sip, I already feel it. It's like it already intensified. Like that same feeling I was feeling, it was subtle before. One little sip and poof, I felt it. Um,
Yeah. It's right there and it's right in your face.
All it takes is a sip, man. Yeah,
My
it's
most intense note off this tea as well is Fruit Loops.
oh, interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, I could see a fruitiness.
But
And for like US market, unfortunately, because we're like driven by sugar and by sexy aromas, which that's the term I like, sexy, when it just like knocks you off your feet versus like elegant is when it's like subtle and unassuming and something that like you don't really even start really sensing or perceiving until you've left the experience. The
sure.
sexy, we just like want that immediate gratification, that immediate like knock off our feet, and so it could play a factor into how a tea like this made its way over here, and got marketed here because it has like a sweet aroma to it.
Mm.
There's something kind of off-putting to it though that I'm getting mostly from here. feels kind of incomplete. It's like for me, I'm getting more of like the sweetness from like a tuber.
A tuber, like a sweet potato or a
Yes.
yam?
Yes. I just like saying the word tuber.
It's kind of a good word. It's a really fun word. See, yes, I was going to agree with you on the yam thing. And like yam, I feel like is a super common note that I get from like some lightly roasted oolong from some younger shungs. It's such a disappointing note, if you will, for me, where I get it and I go, okay.
Yeah, it feels incomplete. Like I'm getting
Mm-hmm.
it, and then like it's not fully rounded.
Right.
My experience with Sheng puers, the with the farmers that we work with, they're like full and abundant. If it's flowery, it's like it feels like a whole bouquet. If it's fruity, it feels like you might not even be able to pinpoint one exact fruit because it just feels so full. Like in this case, like I smell sweetness to it, and it's like an attractive, appealing, like knock you off your feet kind of sweetness, but then also not full. And I felt like using the word tuber was the best way to kind of get the feeling of what I'm trying to describe versus saying sweet potato, because yeah. But the energetics on this is crazy. So like I feel it like as soon as I sip it, it goes down and it stops pretty much here. It doesn't go all the way down to my core. I haven't felt anything in my legs or my core. If anything, I'm feeling a little bit of like disappointment, especially after the last tea we just had. Yeah, and it
Is it like
comes up
right here?
here. It comes up
Mm-hmm.
here, and then it's just like
Right in your
putting this
shoulders, right there.
fire into my head, and it's making me almost dizzy. And like I've literally like only had a few sips. I mean, my cup is almost full. It's pretty insane how intense that is. And just like the American market is attracted to that like sexy knock you off your feet aroma, they're also, especially kind of like this hobbyist market that is fueling a lot of the businesses that are importing and marketing puer teas. That hobbyist market like is like almost seeking that intensity, almost seeking. I got a good friend. I got to shout him out. His name is Sohan Fan from West China Tea in Austin,
So on.
Texas. He's a good dude.
I watch all of his videos.
Cool. Yeah, he's a good dude. I'm good friends with him. We, in
Yeah.
fact, like he's my main source of information and collaboration in Yunnan.
You should
Because
get him
yeah,
on
it's
the
just
podcast at some point.
we should bring him on. We should, yeah, because he has the media capabilities. I should reach out to
Hmm.
him.
That'd be
Um,
fun.
yeah, I know he's really focused on his own channels and
Right.
oh wow, I just like scratched my finger and I realized like the tingling into my fingers, but it's like not in my arms. Like my arms feel empty. It's here still, but then like this like numbing tingling in my fingers. It's
So
weird how energetics work.
this one for me, there. Okay, so the point in the back of your skull where your neck, like the back of your hairline is, and like your neck is kind of like meeting with your skull at this point. There's that little knob right there.
Mhm.
You know what I'm talking about? It's a soft spot.
Mhm.
I've got that's like where it centers for me, and it just kind of like lives in my shoulders here, and
Mhm.
kind of centers in this like spot on the back of my head, and it's just buzzy, right? Like I'm
Mhm.
just
It's
you'll
buzzy.
notice
Yeah.
my eyes are so much more open now. And so just to tell you why I got this cake, because I don't dislike this tea. I was kind of talking a little bit of shit on it just a moment ago, but I don't dislike it.
Mhm.
And the reason for that is because it doesn't make me think about Sheng. And and something that I really do value personally in a tea is are teas that I don't have to think about while I'm brewing. I can just have tea with them. And this is one of them. It's nothing that knocks my socks off. I don't love this tea. I got a cake of it because, it was just kind of I liked I liked the way that what the reviews said. I liked the look of the leaves and stuff. And you know what? I was a little bit let down by it. But on a Saturday when I've got a lot of work to get done that day and I'm just dragging in the morning, a little session of this is like legendary
Yeah.
just to get me going.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I get what you're saying. This is the only tea that gives me a headache. And I don't mean like it's the only tea that ever gives me a headache. I just mean like it's the only tea that like consistently like definitely puts that little like nudge in the back of my head there. But if I drink it too quickly, but yeah, it's just kind of it's not there's not a lot happening. It doesn't change a lot over time. It's just kind of yep, that's Sheng. So
Yeah, and it's not it's on its like texture and tasting notes. It's not having the strong, unappealing things that usually come with poor quality Sheng teas. So, like the
right.
astringency, like it's not very astringent, and it's got that slight sweetness to it. It's kind of not a full sweetness. I'm definitely not getting the full huigan, like that full sweetness returning and kind of blanketing my palate, but it's not bitter and astringent.
It's not offensive by any
Yeah,
means.
not offensive. Similar to how the other tea is not fishy. So, that it's got that going for it. Energetically, though, I'd rather have a cup of coffee. If I'm looking for a buzz, I'd rather have a good cup of coffee than a tea like this and kind of throw my body into this state that it's in right now.
See, that's where you and I differ just a little bit, but
Yeah. So yeah, that was the word I was gonna say about how there is an addressable market of people, and it's mostly young men that are seeking that. Like they actually do want the buzz like that. And the word that Sohan had coined for it one time is pusaders.
we've talked about
Pusaders, yeah.
Pusaders here before.
I love that word, pusaders. Like they're just like they're pursuing. It's almost like a high. It's all, and
Hmm.
it's not like the high like in the other tea you were talking about, like that relaxing, stoned out, chill high. It's like a buzzed out like, ooh, I can get some work done right now. I'm gonna go clean my room. I'm gonna go wash the dishes and work on all these projects I've been talking about. Like this is definitely a tea that can put you into that place. You may have a headache or, a slight little hangover-y feeling from it.
And you should probably eat before and
Oh,
after, but
definitely eat. Yeah, so if you ever get teas like this, yeah, definitely have some food on hand. Even a freaking cracker is enough. More food
something.
is better, but something, because, yeah, you can throw up. My first experience throwing up with tea was a terrible one. I had no idea, because, again, like I was saying, like, all of my experience had been with, like, extremely clean, gentle teas. So it was like, oh, we just woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning, empty stomach. Let's sit down and have a tea drinking marathon. No problem. Like that was always cool for me. But then,
Not this time.
yeah, I was. I actually it was the first time I ever met Scott from Yunnan Sourcing, and he was excited to share his tea with me and get to know me and share a story. And I actually slept at his place. We had come in very late at night, and so we just went directly to sleep and then woke up in the morning. And before everybody else woke up, it was just me and him at the table. And he has an amazing collection. I mean, he's just got a really cool long story of being in tea in China. And he was just really excited to share his collection with me and like share his story with me. And so he just started pouring. And he had asked me, he was like, well, you need to eat something. And I didn't know about this. I was like so wet behind the ears at this point with that type of tea. And we were like 3 teas
Fine.
in. Oh my goodness, I had to get up and run to the bathroom. I threw up and I was like, what is going on with me? Is there poison in this? Like, what is it? And when I got back to the table, he knew what happened and he had a banana ready for me. And the first bite of the banana, all the nausea had gone away. And I was like, okay, now I get it. All right, lesson learned. So I actually ate a little peanut butter and jelly sandwich before the session because I knew we were drinking these teas. I was like, the last thing I want to do is throw up on stream while we're doing this
I
podcast.
told you I made tonkatsu and I was thinking about it and I was like, I've got to get a lot of grain in me right now, some good carbohydrates and breaded pork and rice.
Yep, yeah, carbohydrates are it. So like, and it doesn't have to be a lot. I mean, of course, the more you have, the better it is. And also drinking teas like this, especially the Shou puer, Oh my gosh, I'm feeling it. Like I feel like my speech is like increased in speed.
It has too.
um, and like my head feels hot. I wouldn't even be surprised. I'm gonna go back and look at the video and see if there's like a change in the redness in my face because I feel like
I'm definitely
hot.
sweating now.
I'm feeling hot. But
Sheng sweats. We should. Oh my gosh, Elise, we
yeah.
should make the first steep merch, and it should just be like sweatpants that say Sheng sweats down. That'd be great. Or on the butt or something, just says Sheng sweats. Anyway, whatever you were saying, please continue.
um Speaking more on kind of like the chemistry of tea versus like the spiritual energetics of tea that we've been talking a lot about today, the Shou puer, but both types of puers are very good for helping your body process lipids or fat molecules. So if you have like a really greasy heavy meal, this is really great tea to drink to help get the body kind of rolling and processing that stuff. And
This
which
one
is
specifically does well after like pizza.
yeah, pizza. Dim sum, which is
Hmm.
very popular kind of Cantonese uh, custom of going out. And actually, the original Cantonese word for dim sum is yum cha, which means drink tea. So they typically will drink, and because Hong Kong has a lot of this like tea aging industry there, that's the type of tea you're typically drinking. And so the food that you eat with dim sum actually came after the tea. And the food tends to be like really heavy, greasy, small bites, like lots of little small bites. Yep.
So I think I was reading something recently about dim sum specifically, and it was the tradition of dim sum comes out of serving snacks at the tea house.
Yep.
And it just kind of turned into a more formal thing over time, and that became more, but yeah, I dream of having dim sum and tea. Just
Have you ever had a dim sum, a proper dim sum? Welcome to
never.
Vegas.
I am from small town Illinois, at least. What do you expect?
I'm sure you can go to Chicago. Chicago's probably got some good spots, but something
There's
interesting something interesting about dim sum in America that I've learned because I have like a chef friend that just moved here from Macau, which is very very close to Hong Kong, and he's spent a lot of time in Hong Kong as well. Is and he always wanted to go to dim sum, and we go here, and he was like, what's incredible is that in Hong Kong, as well as Macau, dim sum is still very popular, but the concept of dim sum has evolved and like modernized to encourage more fresh production of the food. They stopped doing like the little carts that wheel around, which is what we kind of think of with dim sum, like you see in movies or whatever, is like kind of this experience with these carts, and you kind of select what things you want from the carts, and you just kind of sit there for hours with your friends and snack on these things. Now it's like in Hong Kong, it's like an experience where you order from a menu and it
sure.
comes out as you order. But here in the States, there's a bunch of places that still do it in that traditional style. And so I've met several people from Hong Kong that like reminisce and kind of say, hey, that's kind of cool about American dim sum is that it's like you can still have that cool kind of traditional experience of having the little like steam baskets getting carted around, which is fun. It's kind of a unique experience with dim sum. Like now in Hong Kong, it's almost like a normal restaurant experience.
It's funny that it had to come to America to get preserved.
Same thing
Of all the
with
things.
like Japanese culture. Leave it to American hipsters to help preserve it. Now let's just not gatekeep it. Like we certainly can do our work to help preserve it, but we gotta do our part and not making it problematic.
If I drink any more of this Sheng, I will not sleep tonight.
Yeah, I'm feeling it. But hey, I actually have a couple of hours of work I was hoping to get done after this, so
At
might
least it
actually be a
is
good thing.
7:30.
Yep. Yep. I had a late start today.
Understandable.
I had a late start.
Well, Do you want to take some questions from chat if there are any?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't really received any. I did get some that I've already kind of responded via text. We did have a friend, SKS. I think this is a new friend joining us from Reddit, um, who was excited to see us doing a tea chat, and they said that they are also brewing some show pour themselves on their end, which is fun. Thanks for
Hmm.
joining us in the tea drinking experience.
SKS. That username sounds familiar.
SK SKS Zolum.
Oh, I know who that is.
Oh, you do? Cool.
Yeah, I know them from Discord.
Oh, fun.
If they're still here, yeah, I'll DM them actually because definitely know who that is.
Small world. The tea world is like that.
Well, honestly, so that's something that's fun is that so I'm super active in Discord, right? Like it's that's my preferred platform. And so
Yeah.
you're familiar with the big T Discord that
Yep.
exists.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know for a fact that a lot of the podcast listeners and viewers come from that Discord and
Cool.
only know about it because of interacting with me there. So
Nice. So he
yeah.
waves to you, or I'm sorry to misgender if I did, but they wave to you.
But yeah, so it's kind of fun, especially like since I know that the Panini here has brought on a lot of uh different people getting into new hobbies and tea being one of them. But the best part about it is that it brought a bunch of people into a new hobby and then forced us all online so we could all geek about the hobby together online. And
Yeah.
honestly, it's been amazing to me just how much niche space there is in places like Discord and Reddit and, just other places in general. So,
Yeah. I just wrote in an article for teaching. I'm a contributor there, which is a kind of collaborative tea blog that I've been contributing to for, I think it's been like 11 years now. But every year I do like my forecast for the year, and mine was on um, not so much like tea in the metaverse, because I think that's very presumptuous to say that like that stuff's gonna get figured out this year. But what I titled it is discovering the metaverse through tea,
hmm.
and how we're gonna start to better understand the concept of the metaverse, and tea being kind of this niche community is a really great one, and not a surprise because even in like the first two eras or generations of the internet, tea did play a big role in it. So in the first generation, the when internet first came into our lives, it was a very one-sided exchange, right? Like
Hmm.
you went to the internet to go read information, and so that was like the blogosphere was like kind of like the big kind of driver of that era. And tea blogs are actually very powerful within the blogosphere. Like I met this like SEO expert, and when he learned that I was into tea, he was like, "Are you kidding me? Like tea blogs are like one of the leading SEO subjects as far as like the amount of content and the amount of potential monetization that can happen." He was like, "What is up with the tea people? Like y'all be
The tea
treating."
people are rabid.
So yeah,
Here's what kills
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say because this just occurred to me. Something that kills me actually about tea people and online content is that not only are they rabid, they are unbelievably willing to watch extremely long form content. I've never met a group of people that are more than willing to watch a 2 hour long video that has no production standard to it whatsoever and just enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's just one of those niche communities. And then Web 2.0, that was pretty much the social media era. And
Hmm.
I like to use like the Reddit, the T subreddit as an example, because 10 years ago when Reddit certainly was already established and popular, the T subreddit was one of the most active and fastest growing. In fact, when I met Alexis Ohanian, who is the founder of Reddit, and told him, "Oh yeah, I use Reddit. I'm on the RT." He knew about RT because it was like one of their more powerful subreddits at the time. So it's like, again, tea people like being first adopters and kind of establishing that era of the internet. They had Steepster at that time too, which had like an
Oh,
extremely
Steepster's
active
huge.
community of people, and there was Tea Chat, like all of the discussion forums and the social networks. Like Tea was definitely a very active component in the architecture of that. And so, now to say, like, with the live streaming and Discord, I mean, that's metaverse. The next era we're going into is kind of like this seamless intersection of information and communities across different platforms. It's not just one platform. It's not just drinking tea in VR. It could be, that could be one of the platforms you're using. But it's just kind of like making this podcast, and then people maybe discovering through content on TikTok or YouTube, and then going to a T Discord server to remain connected, and like the same people, like our friend SKS here, like seeing them across all those different platforms and experiences. Like that is the concept of metaverse, which I think hasn't really been kind of properly articulated in a philosophical kind of way like that. So I think follow what's going on with tea, and it'll help you realize. I mean, I look forward to see what people do develop in VR as well as in augmented reality with tea. It just so happens that a lot of the nerds that are involved in building those technologies are also tea drinkers. So,
or is it that a lot of tea drinkers are also big into technology and computers and stuff? That's another thing in terms of like, online tea communities. I feel like specifically when we're talking about, Discord and stuff, I feel like I'm always like walking in on a discussion about like chemistry or ecology or something. And it's interesting because I feel like the hobby of tea naturally attracts very specifically minded people, right? And those are people that are interested in the science behind things, because there's just so much to learn from the plant itself. It's the people that are, kind of interested in the analysis of things just because of simply the act of like gong fu cha and, this whole like way of serving tea. But it also, does attract the people like me that are like, oh no, but like, let's all make art and love each other, bruh. So, but yeah, I had not heard the metaverse explained like that before, so that was very interesting, and kind of an insightful thing that I had not considered. So
yeah, it's unique, and but the thing is, it's been vetted. I've put my
sure.
ideas out, and people that are like established leaders of the metaverse have been like, "Thank you for saying it that way," because we need it written in that way. Because like if we allow people to like let a corporation, and I won't say what corporation that is. We all know who's
We all
right.
know.
We all know.
We all know.
If we let a corporation like build it for us, because like we can't understand it. Oh, the metaverse is too complex for us to understand. It's gonna be pretty shitty for us. Pretty shitty experience.
Yeah.
But if we take ownership of it, because that's the point of the metaverse. It's almost like the internet of the internet. It's decentralized. Well, that's what meta, when you attach meta to any word, you're essentially just like adding the prefix like more comprehensive, or like beyond. I mean, that's like literally the word it comes from, beyond, Greek, beyond.
Self-referential.
So it's like, metaphysics is like the physics of physics. It's like, how does reality work? It's like the philosophy of reality is what metaphysics
Meta
means.
tea is the tea of tea.
Yeah,
I don't.
What tea does tea drink? Like.
So if the mailman, is there a mailman for the mailman? But then if there's a mailman for mailman, then who delivers to that mailman?
Yeah, so that's meta.
Is there just an
Like
endless
that's
string
like
of
asking
mailmen?
questions like that is meta. Like that's
Yeah.
what meta means, So.
Or just really lowbrow SpongeBob references.
Hey, SpongeBob, it was very adult, high level thinking going on.
Weirdly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, shall we call that an episode there? I don't have
Yeah,
any more
let's do
questions from
it.
my
Yeah,
chat.
no, this has
Cool.
been. I didn't get any more questions. It just the wave came by, and I think yeah, we did a lot of talking today.
So, for those of you that are just joining us, there you can listen to episodes of this podcast. Actually, there's a link in my chat that I'll throw in there again. At least you got like 1,000 chats, so I don't know how to handle that. But it's a link tree. It's linktr.ee/vaca_studio. That's where you can find all the places to listen to our podcast. It's Apple, Spotify, Amazon. It should be on Google at some point. I have no idea. Stitcher, the podcast index. You can listen to the straight RSS feed, or if you prefer the video, Elise is kindly hosting the video portion of the podcast on her YouTube channel, so you can also go there as well. So, yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for joining me as always, Elise.
Yeah, no, thank you.
And letting me join you.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Thank you for sharing these teas with me.
Yeah, I'm glad that I'm glad that we made it through. I knew you could do it.
I had faith in myself too.
Yeah. And I might have more of the show. That Sheng, I need to put the Sheng away.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna drink more of that. The Sheng, yeah. I'm good. That was enough. I'm solid. I'm good for the night.
We will talk before next week, and I'll look forward to seeing you then.
Bye, everybody.